What is up, guys? Is Metagames GX here, and we are going to be taking a look at what is the best going first side in branded, because currently in burst protocol format, branded's doing well. We're getting like 10 tops a week, at least between regionals and YCSs. The deck is nearing on tier 1 status, and there's a lot of different trends. I think builds are solidifying. There's the hand trap build, of course, that you see right here with like Valor and Imperm and like maybe even Nib and Fu and Ash, of course, but then there's also breaker builds with like Super Poly and Droplet and a little bit of hybrids. Of course, we've seen the Synchro variant and Dracotal too. But overall, there's one constant thing, and that is really the side deck choices that we've been seeing. And there's a big debate on what is the best going first side deck card. So today I'm going to be talking about your best going first side deck cards in branded. And if you want to see more guides like this, please let me know down below. I haven't been able to record too much content since the YCS, but I'm right now heading into overdrive now to I have like 15 projects in the works right now that you guys will see, so we can hopefully continue these daily uploads, of course. So if you want to see more content like that, make sure you're subscribed. We're on the road to 20,000 subscribers, and let's get right into it. So the two most popular side deck cards I think right now in branded are Nadir Servant and Dragon's Mind. Mostly Dragon's Mind at the moment, because Dragon's Mind is essentially a solemn judgment that is at 3 copies instead of 1. Dragon's Mind is so good in branded because it is an Omni Negate counter trap as long as you control a monster with 2500 original attack or defense. So that means you can negate a spell, a trap, or a monster effect, which is pretty good, especially in a format with a bunch of board breakers that can, like Fallen in the Virtuous and then Droplet, that can actually really mess up your end board. I think Dragon's Mind's very good. It can also stop things like Rahu, Dracotal, Branded Fusion, of course. So having this to insulate your end board through the things that could destroy it is pretty good right now. Also, since every branded deck that's out there runs 3 Fuelos, I think that Dragon's Mind ends up being a pretty clean side. You're able to run or put in 3 Dragon's Mind over the 3 Mulcharmy Fuelos, because going first, you don't want to see Fuelos unless you're running cross out, but we'll get to that when we get to that. So Dragon's Mind is quite good for that reason. Now, why wouldn't you run Dragon's Mind, I think is the question. I think people like Sam Jang, I think Andre Torres was on it too, for their tops. A lot of people have been on Dragon's Mind because it is quite good. It can also, one of the best parts about it is you can set it by paying 2,500 life points, which is pretty crazy. So in your standard branded combo, a lot of the time you go through Lubellion the Searing Dragon. So being able to have a free discard, since it just resets itself, is huge, honestly, a lot of the time. Now, the only issue with Dragon's Mind to me, though, is that you need a monster with 2,500 attack or defense on the board, and that's pretty easy in branded. All your extra deck monsters all have 2,500 attack or defense except for Perskinion. So what's the downside? Well, the thing is, you actually have to have it. Nadir Servant is a card where you don't have to have a 2,500 attack or defense monster on the board. It's a lot less dependent. I think we talked about this with Sam Jang in our first branded cast. Highly recommend going watch that. It's like over 2 years ago at this point, but talk about a lot of concepts with branded in that episode, like dependent card design, essentially. So, I think a card that is dependent on you having a certain card in rotation or like a game state to be active, is generally worse than a card that is effectively doing almost the same thing by adding to your end board, but it's not dependent, right? Nadir Servant, you can use this at any point. You don't need to control anything. There's no conditions around it. All you have to do is activate Nadir Servant. I mean, of course, if you're under Droll and Lockbird, you can't, unless the monster's in the graveyard. So there is ways to play around Droll with this card, which is pretty nice. But the thing is with this card is that you can send 1 monster from your extra deck to the graveyard, and then add 1 Dogmatica monster or Fallen of Albaz from your deck to your hand that has attack less than or equal to. And then for the rest of the turn, you cannot special summon from your extra deck. So this is a lock once it's been activated, so you can summon from the extra deck the whole time before you get locked, and then you can just use Nadir Servant, and Nadir Servant can send something like Albion the Branded Dragon, or Dogma, or Titanclad, or Rinbrum, I think in some situations, maybe Grand Guignol maybe, or Albalanetus. I think that. But the thing is, though, then you can search a monster that's a Dogmatica monster or a Fallen of Albaz. I think the best search off of it right now is Fallen of the White Dragon. You do have various Dogmatica monsters, which we have seen teched, like Fleur de Lis, which is pretty cool. And also the original Dogmatica Cristia. I do think these cards are a bit worse, though, than Fallen of the White Dragon. However, if you already have full combo, these are better options. However, we're talking about our best side deck cards, so why would we want to run Nadir Servant? It basically is the same function as a Dragon's Mind, right? You side out Fualos because it's a going first card. You don't probably put in Nadir Servant going second, maybe unless you're in the mirror match for more gas or something weirder against stun. But or like Labyrinth when you know there's gonna be a grind game, right? So Nadir Servant is a clean side for 3 Fualos, and that's the thing with branded. You always need 3 cards to side in going first for those Fualos. So why would you run Nadir Servant over Dragon's Mind? Nadir Servant locks you, right? Like Dragon's Mind doesn't. Thing is, though, like we mentioned, Dragon's Mind has to have a 2500 or 2500 attack or defense monster. Nadir Servant can just be activated. So what are the good applications for Nadir Servant? Because I get this question a lot. It's basically when you get hand trapped, right? Let's just say you go Branded Fusion and you get ashed. It's like, okay, well, now we can go Nadir Servant, search out the Fallen of the White Dragon, and we basically just do the same exact thing that we were going to do with the Branded Fusion, right? Because Fallen of the White Dragon will dump the Albion, which we would have gotten through Branded Fusion into the graveyard, through our most standard Branded Fusion lines. And then Fallen of the White Dragon also special summons down a Cristia, because you only get locked from summoning monsters from the extra deck, so you can still summon monsters from your graveyard or your hand or your deck. An incredible Cristia is a quick effect during the main phase to special summon a Fallen of Albaz. So you can summon out the OG Fallen of Albaz, which most branded decks run. And this is a super poly on your opponent's turn at that point. So that means Nadir Servant just got an Albion in the graveyard, which gets you to either Fallen of the Virtuous, Branded Retribution, Branded in White, Branded in Red is typically a pretty good one as well, which are all interruptions. So you're getting Ecclesia, which is an interruption, plus Branded Red access. And might be like, or like Fallen of the Virtuous, which is a pop, right? So you can fuse off, pop, and then get like a Mirror Jade. So that's like 3 interruptions off of Nadir Servant alone, minimum. And it even works, though, when you're full combo, too. Because if you're full combo, you can kind of meld your, let's just say you haven't gotten hand trapped and you do your standard branded thing and you go to Grand Guignol. Well, now Grand Guignol is a lot more free to send stuff that is in your main deck, which can get, or like Garura or something, which can get kind of spicy, right? Because typically with your branded combo, you have to invest a lot into locking, because I know locking, no skill, but let's just be real, guys. Diabellze is so insane right now that you should be running it, because everyone's on breakers on some level, right? Droplet, Fallen Virtuous, Crown. This turns off every single one of those cards and is pretty good into basically any other deck, since decks have to resolve spells or traps. I think Cristia is pretty bad because I was one of the main proponents of Cristia. This was really before I thought of Diabellze, so my bad. But I do think that these are interchangeable if you used any of our old combos. However, you now get to send this off at Grand Guignol, because Nadir Servant will send the Albion or the Titanclad or the Dogma, which normally you would have to invest your combo into with the Grand Guignol. It's very like, you have to be very rich for Grand Guignol to send a lock, essentially, most of the time. But Nadir Servant, let's just say your full combo, right, gets you there anyway, because you get the Albaz, you get and then anything in the graveyard. So whatever you were going to send to the graveyard with Grand Guignol could just then be a lock. So I think this pairs very well with like a card like Diabellze. Don't run Cristia, that's why I added it here. I think this card's terrible right now because most decks are on locks. I think Invader of Darkness is your other option. However, I think Diabellze is just like better because it affects every deck, not just quick play decks, right? You can use this against Dracotal. Yes, Dracotal's Fallen the Virtuous, but they also have Rahu Dracotal and Branded Fusion. Well, now they have to set it, and then you can pop it. And they would have to set it again after the Diabellze pop, but then you can go Chaos Star Source. So I think that this card's a must-run in the side deck for all the breakers, because that's what Branded loses to, and Nadir Servant, I think, pairs really well with that. And Nadir Servant basically giving you that interruption that Dragon's Mind, right? Dragon's Mind is a single interruption. Nadir gets you 3 interruptions, or augments your board to effectively do that, right? So that's why I think Nadir Servant's just a better card than Dragon's Mind in the side deck, and that's kind of why I want to really make this video about, because this has been like the huge debate on Nadir Servant, right? Like the Nadir situation is crazy. Because I think a lot of people are running Dragon's Mind when they should probably just be running Nadir, because they effectively do the same thing. You might be like, well, Nadir doesn't stop a board breaker. But like I just said, Diabellze does. So you get that on top of more. So I think it's just better than Dragon's Mind. And you might be like, okay, well, Dragon's Mind stops a monster effect. But it's like, okay, well, then Nadir is going to get you to another Mirror Jade, or, a Fallen the Virtuous, or a Mercurier, right? Which can then do the monster negate on top of more. So I think in most situations, this card is just better than Dragon's Mind, just almost mathematically, with how much you get off in Nadir Servant, just like when it's always live. And the biggest sticking point to me why I swapped to Nadir over Dragon's Mind was I would draw Dragon's Mind in a hand going first, and I would have no other starters. If that card was Nadir, I go full combo and still make an end board, and the other 4 cards in my hand are probably non-engine, and it's just a way better situation than Dragon's Mind. And that goes back to the dependent versus independent cards. I think that Nadir is a very independent card, just good in any situation. It's even decent going second, whereas Dragon's Mind, not good going second. It's good going first, but it's still 1 negate, right? And so it can be a little bit tricky. You could side both, honestly, I wouldn't blame you, but you always have to be careful about oversiding going first, right? I think cards like Droll and Lockbird actually work really well for going first sides, because it works as a anti-mole Charmy tech, kind of like Called By and Crossout, because if you get Charmied, you can just Droll yourself after your opponent gets a draw, and then they don't draw anymore. And so that's why you can see, like, I've heard Called By and Crossout in people's side deck, which is fine. Also, I think the Gamma package is insane. Like, this is also another good going first side package or going second. So you just want your cards to work for you, in my opinion. And in Branded, which already, it's not the biggest 1-card starter deck, I think having more 1-card starters like Nadir is very good. I think Nadir could even be main decked, honestly. And once again, it's a super high ceiling card, because the fact you can search any Dogmatica monster, so you can get any of the new Dogmacas and cook with those. So what did you guys think about this video? Let me know down below. Are you guys running Nadir Servant or Dragon's Mind? Let me know what your favorite side deck card for Branded is at the moment. And with that being said, we'll be seeing you guys later. Metagames GX signing out.